Karen Whitmore's morning started with her neighbor's sprinkler system, dousing her prized rose bushes with recycled water, a clear violation of Sunset Grove HOA's Landscaping Code 4.7b. By 9 a.m., she'd already photographed the offense, measured the water droplets' trajectory with a ruler, and drafted a formal complaint. What she didn't expect was to find a fluorescent orange foreclosure notice stapled to her own front door. "This has to be a mistake," Karen muttered, ripping the notice down so aggressively that splinters from her mahogany doorframe scattered onto her welcome mat. The paperwork claimed she owed $47,000 in unpaid HOA fees and legal costs. Karen's hands trembled as she scanned the document again. $47,000? Her monthly dues were $150, and she'd never missed a payment in 12 years. The third shock came when she spotted her across-the-street neighbor, Janet Morrison, peeking through her blinds with barely concealed glee. Janet had been feuding with Karen ever since the infamous mailbox height incident of 2019, when Karen had reported Janet's decorative mailbox for being 3 inches too tall. Now Janet was practically vibrating with satisfaction behind her window. Karen marched straight to the HOA office, heels clicking like gunshots on the sidewalk. The receptionist, a mousy woman named Beth, looked up nervously as Karen slammed the foreclosure notice onto the counter. "I need to speak with David Mitchell immediately," Karen demanded, referring to the HOA president. He's in a meeting. I don't care if he's performing open-heart surgery. Get him out here now." 20 minutes later, David emerged from his office looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. Karen had served on the HOA board for 8 years before stepping down last spring, and David knew exactly what he was dealing with. "Karen, I'm sure we can work this out." "Work what out, David? This fantasy bill for $50,000? $47,000. David corrected weakly. "Look, there were some irregularities in your account. Late fees compounding, legal costs from various disputes you initiated." "Disputes I initiated?" Karen's voice rose to a pitch that made Beth wince. "You mean enforcing the rules that everyone else ignores?" David shuffled through a thick folder. "Well, there was the Thompson fence case, the Martinez garden gnome situation, the Williams garage door color complaint. Each case David mentioned was legitimate. Karen had caught violations that others missed, filed proper paperwork, followed every protocol. She'd been thorough, professional, and absolutely correct, according to the HOA bylaws. So how had following the rules to the letter somehow resulted in her own financial ruin? "I want every document, every receipt, every piece of correspondence," Karen said, her voice dangerously quiet. "And I want it today." David's uncomfortable silence told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't about missed payments or legitimate fees. This was payback, orchestrated by someone who wanted her gone. As she left the office, Karen's mind was already working, calculating, planning. She'd spent years mastering the HOA's labyrinthine rules and procedures. Now it was time to use that knowledge as a weapon. Karen spent the next 3 days buried in HOA documents like an archaeological expedition through bureaucratic sediment. What she discovered in her home office, surrounded by towers of paperwork and empty coffee cups, made her blood run cold and then boil with fury. The fees weren't random. Someone had been systematically adding charges to her account. $500 for excessive correspondence, $1,200 for frivolous complaints, $2,000 for administrative burden. Each charge coincided perfectly with her successful violation reports against other residents. They weren't just trying to silence her. They were financially punishing her for doing the HOA's job better than they did. Clever, Karen admitted grudgingly as she traced the paper trail, but not clever enough. She found the smoking gun in David's email correspondence, obtained through a public records request that cited her former board member status. The messages between David and several residents revealed a coordinated effort to neutralize the Karen problem through creative fee assessment. Janet Morrison's name appeared frequently, along with several other neighbors Karen had cited over the years. But Karen's real breakthrough came when she discovered David had been approving major expenditures without proper board votes, a clear violation of the HOA's governing documents. The new playground equipment, the fancy entrance landscaping, the upgraded clubhouse furniture, none of it had been properly authorized. David had been playing fast and loose with the rules while crucifying Karen for following them. Armed with evidence, Karen requested an emergency board meeting. The 5-member board gathered in the clubhouse's conference room on a Thursday evening, the tension thick enough to cut with the ceremonial ribbon-cutting scissors displayed on the wall. "Gentlemen," Karen began, placing a neat stack of documents on the table, "we need to discuss David's unauthorized expenditures totaling $186,000 over the past 18 months. The color drained from David's face as Karen methodically presented her evidence. Each unauthorized purchase, each backdated approval, each falsified board resolution. She had it all documented with timestamps and digital signatures. Furthermore, Karen continued, "The fees assessed to my account constitute selective enforcement and potential discrimination under state housing law. I've consulted with Brennan and Associates. They're quite interested in our little community." Board member Tom Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew Brennan and Associates as the law firm that had bankrupted the Pine Valley HOA in a similar case 2 years ago. "What do you want, Karen?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Karen smiled, not her usual predatory grin, but something far more dangerous. "I want my account zeroed out. I want a formal apology, and I want David's resignation as president, effective immediately." The vote was unanimous. 3 weeks later, Karen stood in her front yard, watching David load boxes into his moving truck. The foreclosure had been reversed, her legal fees covered by the HOA's insurance, and she'd been offered David's position as president, which she graciously declined. She had bigger plans now. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. "Sunset Grove case settled. When do we discuss the Pine Valley consultation?" Karen looked across the street where Janet was pretending to water her flowers while obviously eavesdropping. Their eyes met, and Karen gave her former nemesis a little wave. The HOA wars were far from over, but now Karen wasn't just fighting for her house. She was building an empire.